Welcome back. Good to have you with us here at 5:30. This week, 17 News is exploring the growing threat of fentanyl, the highly addictive, highly lethal pain medication that has been around for years. But with alarming frequency, this drug is now showing up in an even deadlier street version, including right here in Kern County, where it has already killed nearly 200 people since January of last year.
And fentanyl is as easy to come by as a Snapchat post or a text message, as we will learn from the subject of tonight's story. This is part 2 of Robert Price's 5-part series on this ever-increasing danger, fentanyl, the counterfeit killer.
Fentanyl was a problem before the pandemic.
They're selling death.
Straight fentanyl.
He was laying right there on the bed.
Will they kill you? Sure.
This should not have happened.
You know, and it happened to me.
And he was trying to do CPR on him.
We see it more and more.
She was a good kid, but she tried to self-medicate.
There's nothing else you can do, and they said no.
There's ways you can die.
People who are dying from overdoses of fentanyl.
I can't treat you once you're dead.
Killing our children.
We have to, as a community, figure this out.
There's a deadly drug on the streets of Bakersfield right now in amazing abundance. It's fentanyl, a synthetic opioid that serves as a powerful painkiller useful in cases such as advanced stage cancer. But it's now been appropriated for the illegal drug trade, and it's killing people. 81,000 in the U.S. last year, including, according to the coroner's office, at least 125 in Kern County. But it's not simply that fentanyl is incredibly toxic. It's that you might not know you're buying fentanyl at all. Illegal drug operations routinely substitute fentanyl for other opiates, such as oxycodone, because it's cheaper and easier to get from foreign suppliers. Wuhan, China, a city we heard so much about last year for another reason, was the world's fentanyl production capital until, ironically, the coronavirus pandemic that also originated in that city disrupted distribution channels. Now, Mexican cartels have largely taken over its manufacture and distribution. And with Big Pharma on the hot seat, facing huge multi-billion-dollar settlements for its role in the opioid crisis, leading to serious restrictions on the availability of prescribed opioids, demand has soared for the even more dangerous illicit versions. Criminal drug makers manufacture realistic-looking oxycodone pills that may contain no oxycodone at all, just fentanyl mixed with other ingredients. Users think they're buying prescription name-brand drugs like OxyContin, Percocet, Norco, and even non-opiates like Xanax. But lab results show the knockoffs that are killing people often contain little, if any, of those compounds. That's what killed Tyler Cabral, whose oxycodone addiction, fed by doctors trying to treat his pain, evolved, after the prescriptions dried up, into a fentanyl addiction he could satisfy only on the street. Fentanyl is what killed Dylan and Cameron Hart. It's what killed Katie Kokenauer and Andrew Pillars. And it's what killed 33-year-old Brooke Torres of Bakersfield, whose counterfeit Xanax, purchased off the street, contained a fatal dose of the synthetic opioid.
My daughter, she was funny. She was very witty. We were like best friends. We did everything together.
But the tragic succession of events started about 5 years before her death as Brooke drove home from Fresno. The road had disappeared in a winter fog so dense and impenetrable it scared her. The anxiety triggered by that event persisted and persisted to the point where Brooke's doctor prescribed her Paxil, then Xanax. Months later, according to Brooke's mother, Becky Torres, Brooke was still hooked on Xanax and desperate to get off. Finally, a physician she'd met socially suggested 3 alternatives: the opioid painkiller oxycodone, of all things, as well as Norco and bars of Xanax. And as happens all too often, Brooke's use of Oxy turned into yet another addiction.
She was addicted to Oxy, and then we put her into a rehab.
It took Becky's intervention for help to come. Brooke did get off OxyContin, but then there were unintended consequences.
She started buying Oxy off the street, from a drug dealer.
Yeah.
And then he was giving her stuff that was actually Oxy laced with fentanyl.
Yeah.
So in 2018, she actually overdosed at the house, and I was home.
Brooke dashed out the door that day, oddly agitated, telling her mother she needed a fast food taco immediately. Instead, she went to her dealer. When she returned, she was calm, at least at first.
We ended up calling 911 and we rushed her to the hospital.
But a few months later, in September 2019, it happened again. Everyone had flown to Georgia for a family event. Everyone except Brooke. who stayed behind because of her classes at CSUB. That night in Atlanta, the family went to a movie, an action flick. Becky emerged beaming with the euphoric adrenaline of an action-packed film. But then,
I didn't feel right, so something wasn't right. So I called my neighbor and I asked my neighbor if they could go check on Brooke, but she is not coming to the door. So then I just got this really weird feeling. So then I called her back and I said, "Can you call 911 for me?" Anyways, they broke into the back door and they tried, for about 45 minutes trying to, but it was too late.
And now the mother looks for ways to honor the daughter. First, by encouraging the state medical board to scrutinize doctors who prescribed recklessly. Second, by organizing a support group for parents like herself who've lost children to drug overdoses. Missing a piece of my heart overdose loss support group, she calls it.
There's so many parents right now in our community that are really suffering, and it's hard.
These tragedies occurred not just because of the irresponsible behavior of physicians or the ruthless addictiveness of fentanyl, but often because of the carelessness and incompetence of those who work in illicit pill-producing operations. Criminal drug makers mix the ingredients for these counterfeit oxycodone pills in whatever suits the size of their operations, from commercial-sized blenders to ordinary coffee bean grinders, pulverizing their product to the consistency of French roast, and then scooping the mixed powder into pill presses, available to the small-time manufacturer for as little as $15. If they don't blend it thoroughly enough, though, however, the distribution of fentanyl in the pill mixture may be inconsistent, uneven. Some pills may contain almost no fentanyl. Some may contain too much. Those are the ones that kill people. It's not hyperbole to call this a game of Russian roulette.
30.
Louis Wright, a former heroin addict turned minister, has seen it play out this way over and over.
There's no consistency. So whereas one guy may, maybe he's smoking a half a pill a day, right? Half a pill a serving or whatever it is, and he's fine. But then he gets another pill and it kills him.
Manufacturing counterfeit fentanyl-laced oxycodone knockoff pills is actually pretty simple if customer safety is not an overriding concern. But in case wannabe drug dealers need tutorials, those are easily discovered on the internet too. Here's one halfway disguised as a Call of Duty video game.
I suggest experimenting heavily with fentanyl because for me, I've had a lot of overdoses. If you keep piling on more additives, which are already toxic, you're going to get a really, really deadly substance on your hands. So when you give it to people, they're going to die, which isn't good for business.
No, not good for business, nor for families. What is the purpose in telling these stories? Just this. A problem that has been emerging gradually over several years across the U.S. is suddenly spreading with ruthless speed and intensity. It's the killer opioid, fentanyl, and it's tearing Kern County families apart, many of whom are learning about this synthetic drug only after it's too late. Illicit fentanyl has been around for years, so why is it so prevalent and so frequently deadly now? I'll have some possible answers next time when we take a deeper dive into the problem of fentanyl, the counterfeit killer. For 17 News, I'm Robert Price.
And we would like to add that credit is due to 17 Steve Womack for producing this series of reports. Now, if you have concerns that someone you know might be using drugs that could contain fentanyl, and that deadly ingredient is turning up more and more in virtually all street drugs, even non-opioids these days, you can take action to protect yourself and your loved ones.
Yes, you can. You can purchase some Narcan nasal spray. The brand name of the anti-overdose drug is naloxone. It comes in a 2-pack for about $60. You can also call the National Helpline, which is 1-800-662-HELP, or the Kern County Behavioral Health Hotline. That number is 1-800-991-5272. And you can visit one or more of the websites here on your screen.
Okay, Robert Price joining us now in studio. Bob, we've got to ask you, how are first responders handling this upsurge in fentanyl emergency calls? I mean, we listen to the scanner in the newsroom all day long, and it seems like we, with increasing frequency, hear these calls for fentanyl overdoses.
Heard it just a couple hours right before the show, but fentanyl overdose. First responders are handling it in a number of ways, but a couple ways they're handling it. One is when they handle the drug itself, they try to avoid handling the drug, but they masks, double gloves, and even then we've seen cases where they've become overcome. And the other thing is you just don't touch it. You just don't touch it at all. And one blast of Narcan, by the way, which the Sheriff's Department carries that around, Hall Ambulance carries it around. One blast of that is not enough sometimes for fentanyl. They've got to give them 2 blasts of fentanyl, or rather of Narcan.
Yeah.
Wow. So what's coming up next in your series tomorrow night?
We are going to meet up with Danny Hart, who kind of got me interested in this topic in the first place. His brother is a longtime colleague of mine, and I had heard that he lost not 1 but 2 sons last year to fentanyl. And Danny has some heartbreaking story, but he's got some constructive things to say.
And it's amazing to note here that in the investigation of this and the people that you have talked to, they are 1 or 2 points of separation from people that you know. Yes. These people who have lost loved ones. So
it is incredible.
Yeah.
Okay. Small town.
Yeah,
right.
It is. Small town, big problem.
Such an important topic, though. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay,
Appreciate
Bob.
it, Bob.
Thanks much.